cotton in her ears to numb the sounds of the world. A tortoiseshell lip keeps her nostrils shut, allowing no aperture for air or water through the lungs or throat. Those delicate twin trees, leaf-veined and branched, vulnerable to cold, obscuring rime. Each morning when she cinches a rope around her waist, a boulder at the tether's end to weigh her down, she thinks not of the clouds of ink that thicken around her body, the silk blindfold or the fingers pressing invisibly against her ears. She turns from woman to dolphin, well-muscled tail propelling her down to nose for nacre, like a descending Nereid, wakame hair entangling the fleets of amberjack. She sought with hunger the rough-shelled mollusk, the ugly oyster that yielded to her, murmuring inaudibly, "You have won." We sat and watched the balls run round tracks, elaborate and sturdy, in a glass case at the Museum of Science. A window on motion, the heavy sound of one sphere displacing another, one thought displacing another. The sculpture and its movement stopped me in my tracks, and I sat there not quite touching you. I could feel the heat that exists in empty space. Not emptiness, but atmosphere, warmed by two bodies in a place that feels as real and whole as taking breath. What I imagine homing pigeons must feel, the instinct to track back over latitudes, across seas that may be real or may be memory, a blind reaching for a sense of home and motion without thought, just as the balls behind the glass run down the tracks. They are content and without words, just as we, watching witness, are wordless and content. Thank you.
Sometimes you're in your 20s in America and you've learned every lesson you're ever going to learn about 10 times already, and you start to realize that's what learning is. Not answering questions, but finding ways to ask the same questions over and over again. You're 21 or 29 and your heart's been broken somewhere between 4 and 14 times. Fetal position on the bathroom floor broken. Real country music broken, and you don't know how you can ever be expected to go on like this for 50 more years and change. You have scars. You've injured your body in ways that will never fully heal, and you realize you are slowly, incorrigibly sliding away from some physical perfection you imagine you must have possessed sometime in the distant past. Maybe when you were 14, maybe the day you were born. You've gone on and off your medication in the bottle. You've had your first marriage and maybe your first divorce, or maybe you've always broken things off or been broken off. You've fucked and you've made love. You're pretty sure you know the difference now. You've thought of suicide in a post-adolescent way at least once. Practically, stoically, without any late-night phone calls, just sober in a dimly lit bedroom weighing cons and pros. Maybe you've changed your name or your gender, and sometimes if you're not paying attention, you forget while filling out customs forms or grocery store reward card applications or your taxes, and start to write those outdated letters, and then, shaking your own head itself, have to cross them out and start over. Maybe at that moment you recognize your 14-year-old self inside you somewhere with black fingernail polish and matching rubber bands on her braces, and you realize she's been there all along, and she will always be there, and sometimes when you're distracted she can sneak up to the surface of your skin just enough to slip her voice onto your paperwork. You lost God, or you found Him. This hasn't changed things as much as you'd hoped. Maybe you've had a child and stared at its tubular body and limbs and 20 tiny perfect digits with awe and gratitude and terror, and you wonder what you could have done to trick the universe into believing you were smart or stable enough for this level of entrustment, and you realize this is how your parents must have felt looking at you. quaking in their ridiculous retro fashions, and you can't help but think of their parents quaking too with amazement in black and white or sepia, and their parents and theirs, and all the way back to Adam and Eve, or Lucy the Neanderthal and her mate, and how they almost felt somehow disdain staring down at their children, these pudgy defiances of entropy created without skill or logic or intention, by accident, flawlessly. And you think even the intelligent algorithm that sets bosons a spin must have its slip-ups and loopholes, and you think in your most self-indulgent fantasias of personification that the laws of motion themselves must feel uncertain at times, and maybe the gods too are making it all up as they go along. And maybe when she's in her 20s you can posit this hypothesis to your child over beers, and she'll listen and roll it over inside her perfect separate skull and respond with a perspective on all of it that you've never in your half-century of life even considered. And maybe this, her mouth, which is not your mouth, over the head of her beer, will finally, for a moment, make you feel unalone. I have chapbooks for sale, donation. Oh yeah, my food's here. Man dies after sex with horse. Enumclaw, Washington. The earliest gods were human figures with the heads of beasts. As though first carving divine beings in our own image, we could not help but acknowledge our animal nature. You did nothing wrong or even unlawful. Most should be so lucky to exit the flesh in throes of ecstasy. Surely your partner enjoyed your final gasp. You're an animal, after all, and the holiest of precedents led you. The Olympian gods could not appear to human beings in their true form, for flesh can't accommodate divinity without rupturing. Zeus and Apollo, therefore, often took the forms of beasts, eagles, swans, bulls, to woo and ravish mortal girls and boys. Our default, the attraction. There is something regal about horses. Remember the rich girls in grade school, firmly straddling the postmortem of their sex? Remember the quivering of the oil-slick shank? Did you ever see that play Equus? It lays this out so clearly. If you had lived to walk home that night, would you have played Oedipus, putting out your own eye? Hubris was always the thing separating us from the animals. Outside of Apollo's oracle at Delphi, carvings warn mortals, know thyself. But the Greeks didn't mean look inward or go to psychotherapy. A better translation of this is know your place. You're not a god, you're a human. Your handmade rope tricks held that spirited beauty for only so long before surge of lust forced him free to fill up your guts with his aching. Humans always want to believe we can control nature. It's why we created gods. So we can envision our simian limbs manipulating the moon and the stars and the earth. If your earthly body bursts open, did you meet your creator? Do you finally know what you are?